September 12, 1953. Paramount Pictures Legal Department. 24-year-old Audrey Hepburn sits across from a conference table lined with studio executives and lawyers. In front of her lies a contract. 47 pages of dense legal language that will determine the next 7 years of her life. She's just finished filming Roman Holiday. The early screenings are phenomenal. Everyone knows she's going to be a star. This contract negotiation isn't about whether she'll be successful. It's about who will control that success. This is standard for all our major stars, explained studio head Y. Frank Freeman. 7 years, exclusive services. We develop your career, you become a household name. Everyone benefits. Audrey reads the contract carefully. She's no naive ingenue. She understands what she's signing. But she also understands that in 1953 Hollywood, this is how the system works. You play by the studio's rules, or you don't play at all. What Audrey doesn't understand yet is how completely these 47 pages will control her life. Not just her career, her life. Where she lives, what she wears, who she dates, when she can marry, when she can have children, what roles she takes, what roles she's forbidden from taking. For the next 7 years, Audrey Hepburn won't belong to herself. She'll belong to Paramount Pictures, body and soul. This is the story of the golden cage that made Audrey Hepburn a legend and nearly destroyed her as a person. To understand how completely Paramount controlled Audrey's life, you need to understand what that 1953 contract actually said. Not the public version, not the sanitized press releases, the real terms that governed every aspect of her existence. Salary control. Audrey would earn $15,000 for her first film under the contract. Sounds reasonable for 1953. But here's the catch. Paramount could assign her to unlimited films per year for that same $15,000. If they wanted her to make 4 movies in 1 year, she had to do it. For the same pay. No overtime, no bonus, no choice. Role selection. Audrey had zero input into what films she made. Paramount could assign her to any project they owned, any genre, any co-star, any director. If they decided she should make a Western, she made a Western. If they wanted her in a horror film, that's what she did. Her artistic preferences meant nothing. Personal appearance control. The studio dictated how Audrey looked, her hair color, her weight, her wardrobe, even for personal appearances. She couldn't cut her hair without studio approval, couldn't gain or lose weight without permission, couldn't wear clothes that didn't fit her image. Social life restrictions. Audrey couldn't date without studio approval, couldn't marry without studio permission, couldn't have children without negotiating time off. Her personal relationships were subject to studio oversight. If Paramount decided a boyfriend was bad for her image, the relationship ended. Period. Geographic control. Audrey couldn't travel without studio permission, couldn't move to a different city, couldn't even vacation in certain locations that might affect her availability or image. She was geographically bound to wherever Paramount needed her. Outside work prohibition. Audrey couldn't work for anyone else. No television, no theater, no radio, no endorsements, no personal projects. For 7 years, Paramount owned 100% of her professional services. Any income she generated belonged to them. Suspension clauses. If Audrey refused any assignment, for any reason, Paramount could suspend her without pay and extend her contract. Refuse one film they want you to make? Your 7-year contract becomes an 8-year contract, and you don't work or earn money during the suspension. Image control. Paramount controlled Audrey's public image completely. What she said in interviews, what causes she could support, what events she attended. They could edit or approve all her public statements. Her personality, as far as the public knew, was manufactured by the studio publicity department. The contract wasn't just employment, it was ownership. Audrey Hepburn, the person, belonged to Paramount Pictures for 7 years. And this was considered generous by 1950s standards. Other studios were worse. MGM contracts were more restrictive. Warner Brothers was more controlling. RKO was more exploitative. Paramount was actually known as one of the nicer studios to work for. The studio system had evolved to this point over decades. In the 1920s and 1930s, studios realized that stars were their most valuable assets. But stars who became too powerful could hold studios hostage, demand more money, choose their own projects, leave for competing studios. The solution was long-term exclusive contracts that gave studios total control. Stars became employees, not partners. Beautiful, talented employees who could be assigned to any project, any role, any publicity campaign the studio wanted. These forgotten stories deserve to be told. If you think so too, subscribe and like this video. Thank you for keeping these memories alive. We're not in the business of making movies, Louis B. Mayer famously said. We're in the business of making stars, and stars work for us. When Audrey signed her Paramount contract, she was signing away her autonomy, her independence, her right to make decisions about her own career and life. In exchange, she got the promise of stardom. The studio would make her famous, rich, globally recognized. But they would own her completely in the process. The control began immediately. Before Roman Holiday was even released, Paramount was planning Audrey's entire future, not consulting with her, planning for her. We need to establish her image, explains publicity head Hal Wallace in a studio memo from October 1953. Elegant but accessible, sophisticated but innocent, European but American friendly. We'll control every aspect of her public presentation. Audrey's first lesson in studio control comes with her wardrobe. Paramount assigns costume designer Edith Head to develop Miss Hepburn's personal style. Not just for films, for her actual life, what she wears to premieres, to restaurants, to the grocery store. Miss Hepburn will only wear clothes approved by the studio, Head informs Audrey. We're creating a brand. Everything you wear in public reflects on Paramount Pictures. Audrey wants to work with Hubert de Givenchy, the young French designer she discovered. Paramount initially refuses. American audiences need to see American style, they insist. It takes months of negotiation before they allow the Givenchy collaboration, and only under strict conditions. Her social life becomes subject to studio oversight immediately. When Audrey starts dating actor Gregory Peck, Paramount approves enthusiastically. Peck is established, respectable, good for her image. When she's photographed with a young French actor nobody recognizes, the studio intervenes. Wrong image, her publicist tells her. Americans want to see you with American men. Established men. Safe men. The role assignments begin before Roman Holiday premieres. Paramount has already decided her next 3 films. Sabrina, opposite Humphrey Bogart and William Holden. Then a romantic comedy with Cary Grant. then a musical with Bing Crosby. "What if I don't want to do the musical?" Audrey asks during a studio meeting. The response is swift and final. "That's not how this works. We decide what's best for your career. Your job is to show up and be brilliant." When Roman Holiday becomes a massive success, Audrey's value skyrockets. She's nominated for an Academy Award. Critics call her the find of the decade. Suddenly, everyone in Hollywood wants to work with her. But Audrey can't capitalize on her success. She can't negotiate with other studios, can't choose projects based on artistic merit or career strategy. She belongs to Paramount, and Paramount alone decides how to use her. The salary structure becomes particularly galling. Roman Holiday earns $12 million worldwide. Audrey's performance is universally praised as the reason for the film's success. Her cut? The $15,000 specified in her contract. While Paramount earns millions from her talent, her compensation remains fixed at the minimum contractual amount. "Can't we renegotiate?" her agent asks Paramount executives. "She's proven her value. She deserves a raise." "The contract specifies her salary," comes the reply. "She'll get raises when the contract allows for them. In year 3 and year 5, not before." The studio begins micromanaging every aspect of her life. They assign her a personal trainer to maintain her figure, a voice coach to refine her accent, an etiquette instructor to perfect her public behavior, acting coaches to develop specific skills they want her to have. Audrey has no input into any of these decisions. She shows up where they tell her, does what they instruct, becomes who they want her to be. When she expresses interest in doing theater during breaks between films, Paramount vetoes it immediately. "You belong to us exclusively. No outside work, no exceptions." "But I miss the stage," Audrey protests. "Theater is where I learn to act." "Theater doesn't pay us," the studio responds. "Movies do." "You'll do movies?" The geographic restrictions become oppressive. Audrey wants to spend time with her mother in London. Paramount limits her visits to specific windows between film commitments. She can't travel spontaneously, can't extend visits if her mother is ill. Her schedule belongs to the studio. Even her romantic relationships become business decisions. When Audrey falls in love with actor Mel Ferrer, Paramount initially objects. Ferrer is older, divorced, has children from a previous marriage. Complicated personal history, the studio notes. But when they realize the relationship is serious, they pivot to control mode. They orchestrate the courtship for maximum publicity benefit. Stage photo opportunities. Arrange candid moments for photographers. Turn her genuine romance into a promotional campaign. "Your wedding will be a studio event," they inform Audrey. "We'll handle all arrangements. The press coverage will be invaluable for promoting your films." Audrey realizes she can't even get married privately. Her most personal moments belong to Paramount Pictures. By the end of her second year under contract, Audrey has made 3 films, earned international fame, been nominated for an Oscar, and become one of the most recognizable faces in the world. She's also lost control of every aspect of her life. By 1955, Audrey is starting to understand the true cost of her success. She's made Sabrina and War and Peace. She's won the Academy Award for Roman Holiday. She's married Mel Ferrer in a ceremony orchestrated entirely by Paramount's publicity department. She's exactly where the studio wanted her to be. But she's miserable. The first rebellion comes over War and Peace. Paramount loans her to producer Dino De Laurentiis for the epic adaptation of Tolstoy's novel. Audrey is excited about the artistic challenge, the chance to work with director King Vidor, the opportunity to play Natasha, one of literature's great characters. Then she sees the script. It's been butchered, simplified, Americanized. Natasha has been transformed from a complex Russian aristocrat into a generic romantic heroine. All the philosophical depth of Tolstoy's work has been stripped away for commercial appeal. This isn't War and Peace, Audrey tells Paramount executives. This is a soap opera with Russian names. It's what audiences will understand, they reply. The book is too intellectual. We need to make it accessible. Audrey asks to meet with the screenwriters, to suggest changes that might restore some of Tolstoy's vision. Paramount refuses. Your job is to act, not to write, not to produce, not to make creative decisions. When Audrey persists, they remind her of her contract terms. You have no input into script changes. You perform the material as written. Period. The experience of making War and Peace under these conditions is devastating for Audrey. She watches one of her dream projects being ruined by commercial considerations. She delivers a professional performance, but her heart isn't in it. The film fails critically and commercially. The failure teaches Paramount the wrong lesson. Instead of questioning their interference with the material, they decide Audrey needs tighter control, more supervision, less independence. She's been getting ideas above her station, studio head Frank Freeman tells his executives. We need to remind her who's in charge. The reminder comes with her next assignment, Funny Face, a musical comedy opposite Fred Astaire. It's a prestigious project with a legendary co-star, but it's also exactly the kind of lightweight entertainment Audrey is growing tired of making. I want to do something more serious, she tells the studio, more challenging, more meaningful. You want to do what we tell you to do, comes the reply. Funny Face will be a hit. It'll reinforce your image. It's perfect for you. When Audrey suggests script changes for Funny Face, small adjustments that might add depth to her character, Paramount shuts her down immediately. The script is fine as written. Stop trying to be a creative collaborator. Be a performer. The pattern becomes clear. Audrey can succeed brilliantly within the system, but she cannot change the system. She can be the perfect Paramount star, but she cannot be an artist making independent choices about her work. Her marriage to Mel Ferrer provides some emotional support, but it also creates new complications. Ferrer has his own career ambitions, his own projects, his own artistic vision, but Paramount views him primarily as an extension of Audrey's brand. We don't want Mel making statements that contradict Audrey's image, the publicity department warns. His career choices reflect on her. Her success supports his projects. Everything is connected. When Ferrer expresses interest in directing Audrey in an independent production, Paramount vetoes it immediately. She can't work outside her contract. Any film she makes has to be a Paramount film, no exceptions. The couple explores legal options. Can they buy Audrey out of her contract? Can they negotiate modifications? Can they find loopholes that might allow more independence? Their lawyers are pessimistic. These contracts are ironclad, they explain. The studio system has been refined over decades to prevent exactly what you're trying to do. Stars who try to break their contracts usually lose everything. They point to cautionary tales, actors who challenged the system and found themselves blacklisted, actresses who demanded independence and discovered no other studio would hire them. The message is clear. Work within the system or don't work at all. If you want more untold stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Your support means everything to us. Audrey makes her most serious rebellion attempt in 1956. She's been under contract for 3 years. She's made multiple successful films. She's proven her value beyond any doubt. Surely now Paramount will be willing to renegotiate more favorable terms. I want more input into my projects, she tells studio executives. I want the right to approve scripts, the right to suggest changes, the right to turn down roles that aren't right for me. The response is swift and brutal. You have no rights except those specified in your contract. And your contract doesn't give you creative control. Accept the roles we assign or face suspension without pay. The threat of suspension terrifies Audrey. Not just because of the financial implications, though not working would be economically devastating, but because suspension time gets added to her contract. Refusing to work doesn't free her from Paramount faster. It keeps her bound to them longer. Faced with this reality, Audrey capitulates. She makes funny face. She smiles for the cameras. She gives interviews praising the studio system. She becomes the perfect contractual employee. But something inside her has changed. The naive young woman who signed the contract, believing in partnership and collaboration, has been replaced by someone who understands she's living in a beautiful prison. By 1957, Paramount has perfected the art of exploiting Audrey Hepburn. They've learned exactly how much creative control to deny, how much financial compensation to withhold, and how much personal freedom to restrict while still maintaining her cooperation and public image. The exploitation becomes systematized, methodical, ruthlessly efficient. Financial exploitation. Audrey's films are generating enormous profits for Paramount. Funny Face earns $13.5 million worldwide. Love in the Afternoon makes $11.2 million. The Nun's Story brings in $17.6 million. Total box office from Audrey's films since 1953, over $65 million. Audrey's total compensation for generating these profits, $127,000 over 6 years. Less than 0.2% of the revenue her work creates. Meanwhile, Paramount executives receive bonuses based partly on the success of her films. Studio department heads get raises justified by the profits from her projects. Everyone benefits financially from Audrey's work, except Audrey herself. Creative exploitation. The studio has learned to package artistic compromise as career development. They assign her to increasingly similar roles, elegant, sophisticated, romantic, that reinforce her brand but limit her artistic growth. We've found your niche, they tell her. Why would you want to do anything else? You're perfect at this. When Audrey expresses interest in dramatic roles, serious subjects, complex characters, Paramount dismisses these desires as misguided ambition. Audiences love you as the charming romantic lead, they explain. Changing your image would confuse them, disappoint them, hurt your career. The logic is circular and inescapable. Audrey can only do what she's already done. Success becomes a trap that prevents growth. Personal exploitation. The studio has refined their control over Audrey's personal life to an art form. They don't forbid her relationships. They manage them. When she wants to start a family with Mel Ferrer, Paramount doesn't say no. They schedule it, Pregnancy must fit between film commitments. Birth must accommodate promotional tours. Motherhood must enhance rather than interfere with her professional obligations. You can have a baby, they tell her, but the timing has to work for us, and you'll need to return to work within 6 weeks of delivery. The message is clear. Even her most personal desires are subject to studio approval and scheduling. Image exploitation. Paramount has discovered that Audrey's authenticity, the genuine warmth and intelligence that made her a star, can be manufactured and controlled. They script her interviews, coach her responses, create talking points for every public appearance. The irony is devastating. The spontaneity and genuineness that originally attracted audiences to Audrey are being systematically eliminated. She's being trained to perform authenticity rather than express it. When journalists note that she seems more rehearsed in recent interviews, Paramount adjusts their strategy. They allow moments of apparent spontaneity, carefully planned and scripted moments that give the illusion of genuine expression. Contract exploitation. The studio uses every clause in Audrey's contract to maximize their control and minimize their obligations. The suspension clauses become particularly insidious weapons. When Audrey shows any sign of resistance, questioning a script, suggesting changes, expressing preferences, Paramount threatens suspension. Not just the loss of income, but the extension of her contractual bondage. Remember, they tell her, every day you're suspended gets added to your contract. You think 7 years is too long? Keep arguing with us, and it becomes 8 years, 9 years. However long it takes for you to learn cooperation. The psychological manipulation is sophisticated. They've created a system where resistance is punished not just with immediate consequences, but with the extension of the very arrangement Audrey wants to escape. The exploitation extends to her relationships within the industry. Paramount controls which directors she can work with, which producers get access to her, which projects she's allowed to consider. Directors who want to work with Audrey learn they must go through Paramount. Scripts must be approved by studio executives before Audrey is even allowed to read them. Creative collaborations are filtered through multiple layers of studio oversight. We protect our investment, Paramount executives explain when questioned about this control. Audrey is valuable property. We can't let her be damaged by inappropriate projects or unsuitable collaborators. The language is telling. Audrey isn't an artist to be nurtured or a collaborator to be consulted. She's property to be protected and exploited. By 1958, 5 years into her contract, Audrey has become the perfect studio creation. Professionally successful, publicly beloved, personally controlled. She performs brilliantly in whatever role she's assigned. She says the right things in interviews. She maintains the exact image Paramount wants her to project. But people close to her notice changes. The spontaneity is gone. The joy in her work has been replaced by professional competence. The woman who once brought genuine excitement to every project now approaches her career with careful resignation. She's still brilliant, notes director William Wyler, who worked with her on Roman Holiday and later on The Children's Hour. But something has been dimmed. The system that made her a star is slowly killing what made her special in the first place. The tragedy is that Audrey understands exactly what's happening to her. But she also understands that she's trapped. 2 more years on her contract. 2 more years of systematic exploitation disguised as career management. 2 more years of belonging to Paramount Pictures instead of herself. The breaking point comes in 1959, during the filming of The Nun's Story. It's Audrey's most challenging role to date. Sister Luke, a nun struggling with faith, duty, and personal desires. The subject matter is serious. The character is complex. The themes are profound. For the first time in years, Audrey feels artistically fulfilled. Director Fred Zinnemann respects her intelligence, consults her on character development, allows her to contribute to creative decisions. The experience reminds Audrey what filmmaking can be when it's collaborative rather than dictatorial. "This is how I want to work," she tells Mel Ferrer. "This is what I've been missing. The chance to be an artist, not just a performer." The film is both a critical and commercial success. Audrey receives the best reviews of her career. Critics praise her maturity, her depth, her artistic growth. She's nominated for her 5th Academy Award. But instead of celebrating Audrey's artistic evolution, Paramount sees The Nun's Story as an aberration, a departure from her established image that needs to be corrected. Too serious, studio executives determine. Too heavy. Audiences want to see Audrey being charming, not wrestling with existential doubt. Her next assignment is Breakfast at Tiffany's, a return to romantic comedy, sophistication, and the classic Audrey image. When Audrey reads the script, she's appalled. Truman Capote's Holly Golightly is a complex, troubled character. A woman shaped by poverty and trauma who uses charm and sexuality to survive. Blake Edwards' script has sanitized all of this complexity away, turning Holly into a quirky, romantic heroine. "This isn't the character Capote wrote," Audrey tells Paramount. "You've removed everything interesting about her. Everything real. We've made her likable," they respond. Audiences won't root for a character who's morally ambiguous. They need to love Holly from the first scene. Audrey argues for script changes that might restore some of Holly's complexity. Paramount refuses. "The script is perfect as written. Stop trying to make every character a tortured intellectual." The dismissal is brutal because it's so reductive. Audrey isn't asking to turn Holly Golightly into Hamlet. She's asking for the character to have depth, motivation, psychological reality, the things that make performances memorable rather than merely competent. But Paramount has decided that depth is dangerous. Complexity is commercial suicide. Audrey must remain safely within the narrow range they've defined for her. The breaking point comes during a contract meeting in late 1959. Audrey has 18 months left on her Paramount deal. The studio wants to discuss renewal terms. "We're prepared to offer another 7-year contract," announces Frank Freeman. "Improved salary, of course, more prestigious projects, continued star treatment." "What about creative input?" Audrey asks. "Script approval? Director consultation? Some control over my career?" "Absolutely not," Freeman responds immediately. "The current system works perfectly. You're one of our biggest stars. Why would we change anything?" "Because I'm not growing as an actress," Audrey explains. "Because I feel like I'm repeating the same performance in different costumes. Because I want to challenge myself." "Challenge is overrated," Freeman replies. "Success is what matters. And you're successful doing exactly what you're doing." The conversation continues for 2 hours. Audrey makes every argument she can think of. Artistic fulfillment, career longevity, personal satisfaction, professional growth. Paramount's response never varies. "You don't need those things. You need to do what you do best. What we tell you to do best." When the meeting ends, Audrey realizes something fundamental has changed. She's not going to sign another contract. She's going to serve out her remaining 18 months and then leave Paramount forever. The decision terrifies her. She's been with the studio for 7 years. They've made her career, her reputation, her financial security. Leaving means starting over, building new relationships, taking risks they've protected her from. But staying means accepting permanent artistic imprisonment, spending the rest of her career repeating variations of the same performance, never growing, never challenging herself, never becoming the artist she knows she could be. "Are you sure about this?" Mel asks when she tells him her decision. "Paramount has been good to us. They've made you a star." "They've made me a product," Audrey corrects. There's a difference. The studio senses her growing resistance and responds predictably. They tighten control, increase supervision, make her last 18 months as restrictive as possible. If she won't re-sign willingly, Freeman tells his executives, maybe we can remind her what life outside Paramount looks like. They begin spreading rumors that Audrey is difficult, demanding, ungrateful. Industry whispers suggest she's forgotten what the studio has done for her, that she's making a mistake leaving security for uncertainty. But Audrey has made her decision. 18 more months of servitude, then freedom. Even if that freedom means starting her career all over again. September 15th, 1960. Audrey's Paramount contract officially expires. After 7 years, 2,555 days, she belongs to herself again. The golden cage opens, and Audrey Hepburn walks out. The industry reaction is swift and divided. Paramount executives are furious. They've invested 7 years in building her career, and now she's leaving just as that investment is paying off maximally. She's making the biggest mistake of her life, why Frank Freeman tells reporters. Stars who leave the studio system usually discover they can't survive without it. Other studios are intrigued. Audrey Hepburn is available. One of the biggest stars in the world is free to negotiate with anyone. The bidding war begins immediately. But Audrey approaches her freedom strategically. Instead of signing another long-term exclusive contract, she chooses projects individually, film by film, director by director, script by script. "I want to work with people who respect my intelligence," she tells her new agent. "I want roles that challenge me. I want to be a collaborator, not just a performer." Her first post-Paramount choice proves her point brilliantly. Breakfast at Tiffany's with Blake Edwards directing. It's the same script Paramount wanted her to do without changes. Now she has the power to demand script improvements. Working with Edwards as an equal rather than as studio property, Audrey helps refine Holly Golightly into something closer to Capote's original vision. Still commercial, still appealing, but with psychological depth and complexity. The result is her most iconic performance. Holly Golightly becomes not just entertaining, but memorable. The Moon River scene works because Holly has genuine sadness beneath her sophisticated facade. The character resonates because she's human, not just charming. Breakfast at Tiffany's proves that creative control improves Audrey's work rather than damaging it. When she's treated as an intelligent collaborator, her performances deepen and strengthen. The box office confirms this. Breakfast at Tiffany's earns more than any of her Paramount films. Critics celebrate her artistic growth. Audiences embrace the more complex version of Audrey Hepburn. Her career post-Paramount becomes a masterclass in selective choosing. My Fair Lady with George Cukor. Charade with Stanley Donen. Two for the Road with Stanley Donen. Wait Until Dark with Terrence Young. Each project chosen deliberately. Each director someone who values her creative input. Each role selected for artistic merit as much as commercial potential. The results speak for themselves. Her post-Paramount performances are generally considered her finest work. More nuanced, more challenging, more memorable. But the personal cost of those 7 years under contract never completely heals. Friends notice that Audrey remains cautious about long-term commitments, suspicious of anyone who wants to control her career, protective of her independence in ways that sometimes limit her opportunities. The studio system damaged her trust, observes William Wyler years later. She never completely believed again that powerful people had her best interests at heart. How could she? For 7 years, people claimed to be developing her career while actually exploiting her talent. Audrey's escape from Paramount becomes part of the larger collapse of the studio system. By the mid-1960s, most major stars are following her example, choosing projects individually, maintaining creative control, refusing to sign long-term exclusive contracts. The system that once owned Hollywood's biggest names completely begins crumbling as stars realize they have alternatives. But Audrey paid the price for this freedom. 7 years of systematic exploitation. 7 years of being treated as property rather than person. 7 years of artistic imprisonment disguised as career development. When she retires from acting in the 1970s to focus on family and humanitarian work, Audrey reflects on those Paramount years with mixed emotions. "They made me a star," she says in a 1976 interview. "I'm grateful for that. But they also tried to make me into something I wasn't. A product, a brand, a controlled image rather than a person." "Do you regret signing that contract?" the interviewer asks. "I regret how completely it controlled my life," Audrey responds. "I was 24 years old. I thought I was entering a partnership. I discovered I was becoming property." The legacy of Audrey's experience is complex. The studio system that exploited her also protected her from many industry dangers. The control that frustrated her also ensured her success. The restrictions that limited her growth also guaranteed her security. But ultimately, her greatest artistic achievements came after she escaped that system. When she had the power to choose her projects, her collaborators, her creative direction. The lesson is clear. Talent flourishes with guidance and support, but withers under total control. Stars need development, but they also need respect. Careers can be built through collaboration, but they're destroyed by exploitation. Audrey Hepburn spent 7 years learning that lesson the hard way. The rest of Hollywood spent the next decade learning it from her example. The golden cage made her a legend, but freedom made her an artist. And ultimately, that freedom was worth the fight to achieve it. This is Audrey Hepburn, The Hidden Truth. From wartime horrors to Hollywood secrets, we uncover what they've been hiding for decades. Subscribe to discover the dark truth behind the elegant image.